The enemy of fear is information. And I actually don't know who said that. I was reading, or actually not reading, listening to an audiobook, and the book I was reading actually referenced that as a quote. And I thought, do you know what? That is such a good quote. The enemy of fear is information. Effectively, if you want to put fear in someone, have information. In the workplace, what puts HR in a conundrum and what invokes fear within a company is information. Information is knowing your rights, the ability to assert yourself, assert your rights, and also being able to advocate for yourself from an informed position, because a lot of the policies and guidance that organisations have within their organisation, some of these policies have not been updated in years, and for those who have policies and guidance, a lot of these HR quote unquote professionals and managers don't even understand those policies. Some of them don't even know it exists, and therefore it is your duty to be informed, especially when it comes to the world of work. And I'd like to believe, and I'd like to think that the Toy Talks podcast is part of that information, which you're able then to use as leverage, that will enable you to navigate the world of work. It has been 3 weeks since my last episode. Not really too sure. I think it's 3 weeks or 2 weeks, probably 3. And you know, there has been a lot going on, and as the podcast progresses, there's a lot of things that need to be shared and spoken about here. And you know, for me, the way I operate and the way I move, I, you know, come on here and I share what needs to be shared, and I'm really passionate about Black women. I'm a Black woman, and I'm just passionate about our community, and part of that is also coming as myself and working through certain things so I can come into the podcast and share them with you, the learning lessons and even the mistakes that I've made, so that you can do better and be better than me. So this episode is called Spirit Cry, and in this episode I'm going to be discussing some of the emotions, some of the things I learned, and during a very vulnerable period, and that was my wedding blessing that took place in August last year, 2022, and the introspection that I had to do, and a lot of revelations that I realised about myself as to the reason why I am the way I am, and why work has been such a focal point in my life, and just unpacking some of the things that I think you guys would be really interested in, because I know there's a lot of people in the same or similar situations and able to just relate. So I think this episode needs to be it, because I have been meaning to speak about it but deliberately haven't, because I've still had to have time to work through some of those things, and I feel like I'm in a position now where I'm able to confidently sit here and have this discussion. But before we get into that, I do want to speak a little bit about the whole Kanye West and Adidas, and Beyonce and Adidas as well, as a learning lesson, as a learning information reference point. So we all know what happened with Kanye West, and we all know the demise of that relationship with Adidas, which Kanye West has been very open and honest and said, listen, I'm trying to get out my contract. So the things that transpired after he said that, it didn't come as much as a surprise. Obviously, you know, a lot of us witnessed his very problematic comment statements, racial slurs, racial discrimination, not just to the Jewish community, but also to the Black community as well. And Kanye West, to be honest, he is a big disappointment, because for me, I've always looked up to Kanye West as a business mogul. I love his business acumen, how he moves, everything about the business element. And for me, I'm able to see that element of things and kind of discuss it for the purposes of this episode. So we saw the demise of that relationship, and Adidas, and this is in my opinion, used kind of what had been happening with Kanye West and the things that he'd done, and they basically piggybacked off that and basically tried to, I wouldn't say try to, I'd say they basically dissolved the relationship between Yeezy and Adidas. Now, they were very clear, very vocal about their position, And I would actually go as far as saying that they were almost reveling in the demise, because what then become apparent allegedly is that they owned a lot of the patents for the Yeezy brand. I mean, I've got my own view on it based on information that I have, because I have somebody who is connected. But the reality of it is, Adidas were very clear that they would continue to sell the Adidas brand but remove the Yeezy logo. And it's a very arrogant approach, because the assumption is that you think, Adidas, that we're buying stuff because it's Adidas. And we're not, because in isolation, Adidas ain't shit. Let's just really be honest. Now, it has been reported that Adidas have millions of pounds, I think it's millions, I don't even think it's billions, worth of stock that equate to 1 point something billion of their turnover. So that is a huge chunk of their turnover. And effectively, since the demise of the relationship with Yeezy, Adidas have not been selling very well. I mean, I don't know about some of you guys, but I used to be a massive Adidas Originals fan, because back in the way back when I used to work for Adidas. The big Adidas store in Oxford, is it Oxford Circus or Bond Street? I used to be a sales assistant. I and other colleagues opened up that store. And Patrick Vieira came, David Beckham came down to open it. I didn't even know who Vieira was, and I was just there standing having a big off conversation with him. And then obviously I love French accents, so I was just like talking to him. Everyone's looking at me like, oh my god, it's Patrick. I didn't even know who he was. I digress. But the point is, Adidas in isolation ain't shit. Because when you're thinking about, I'm going to go buy trainers, you're not thinking, I'm going to go buy Adidas trainers. I don't think that's not what really comes to mind for me anyway. So obviously the things with Kanye West have kind of calmed down insofar as he has been banned off certain social media sites. Apparently he's remarried, allegedly. One of the visual creators of the Yeezy brand. It's all alleged at this point. But the point is, there's been an acknowledgement from Adidas that they haven't met their profit for this year. And it's because of the demise of the Yeezy relationship. So what they did is that apparently and allegedly, they've reached out to Kanye West to renegotiate terms that are more favourable. Because Kanye West's position was always that these terms are not favourable. Adidas are trying to screw me over. I want out of this relationship. And then everything kind of snowballed. And apparently they've offered him kind of effectively a blank sheet of paper and said, what do you want for us to get rid of this stock? And then it was reported that last week they had come to an agreement to get rid of the stock, but not produce any new stock. And Kanye West got more favourable terms. But it's also meant that the turnover for Adidas, if it is true, will be very, very good, i.e. they'll be able to recoup effectively what they've lost. I've already removed the Adidas app from my phone, because I'm one of those people that I very much bought into the Yeezy brand. I own 15 pairs of Yeezys. Some people keep spare trainers in their car. I keep a spare pair of Yeezys in my car. For me, I just love everything about the marketing and business of Yeezy, and I like the fact that his trainers are just different. They're just different. I remember recently when I was in Dubai and I went to one of these stores, where they try to resell these Adidas trainers, and I know that a lot of the trainers I own are limited edition, and they're going, like, I paid like $190 for a particular pair, and they're going for £500-600. And I walked in there, and I don't know what trainers I had. I don't even think I had trainers, I had flip-flops on. And the way they must have dealt with me in that shop, like I couldn't afford anything in there. These times, I don't know, I've got 15 pairs of Yeezys in my house, but it's the power that brand yields across the globe. You can't see Adidas Yeezy trainers replicated. Like, you can try and replicate it, but if it ain't Yeezy, it ain't it though, is it really? And I think it was a very humbling situation for Adidas to have to go back to the drawing board after making such a grandiose statement about how they're not working with him, they dissolved the relationship, this, that and the other. And I think it was an example of how people ride a bandwagon but are not committed to the bandwagon they're riding. And then when it hits their bottom line, because everything, effectively, it results in money. When it hits the bottom line, then suddenly, let's come back to the drawing board. And I'm finding that even on the scale of work, it's the same thing. Because I'm currently working for a situation at the moment, which I'm going to talk about a bit later, whereby when you hit them where it hurts, they suddenly realise, actually, I feel like we could talk, but they don't want to take the more pragmatic approach. It's like they have to be disgraced, shamed into it, and they have to lose something and take a financial hit. I think what has happened, if it has transpired in this way, is the power the Yeezy brand yields and the power of Kanye West. And this is why I always say repeatedly, whether you are a perm employee, whether you're a contractor, freelancer, whatever it is, you need to see yourself as a business. Because if you start seeing yourself as a business, you move like a business. And what that means is you start thinking about what your bottom line looks like. And our bottom line is what you financially take home, the terms and conditions of your employment. That's what your bottom line is. And I feel like a lot of people navigate in a way that is so detrimental to their careers, because rather than look at yourself like a business, you look at yourself as subservient. You look at yourself as lucky, when actually, and if you think about a workplace relationship, it's a mutually beneficial relationship where an organization has a role to fill and you have the skill set to fill that role. So there's a mutual beneficial understanding and a transactional relationship that's taking place. Now, if you go into this organization and you're doing a different role, or you're being underpaid in comparison to the market or your colleagues, or you go there and it's a completely different role to what you agreed to, that hits you from an emotional perspective. It hits your bottom line, especially if you're not getting paid like a significant amount of money for a role that you think that you're being underpaid for, and the market dictates you should be getting a lot more. You need to, if you start seeing yourself as a business and work it through that way, I think a lot of us would start holding organisations and businesses to account. There's far too many emails I get in their mailbox, far too many, where a lot of you are paying the price for not negotiating favourable terms. You can't come in my mailbox and say, oh, I've been working here for 3 months and I haven't passed my probation. You can't come and tell me that, because there's a probation masterclass there. It's only when you go through the masterclass and maybe there's a gap somewhere because your situation is unique, then yeah, let's have that conversation. But I've given you the tools. If you don't want to use those tools, I can't help you. I can't want more for you than you want for yourself. If you know you're being underpaid, there's a negotiation masterclass there where you can negotiate pay and negotiate more contractually favourable terms. You see, when you start seeing yourself as a business, you start looking for balance. And when you start looking for what is actually balance? What is balance? Fairness. You start looking for fairness. I'm really sorry. There are people that love going to the office Monday to Friday. There are. And I've got no opinion about that. You do what makes you happy. But personally, for me and a lot of others, the pandemic really highlighted something massive. That actually, transportation is expensive. Number 2, I don't need to be in your office to be productively doing work. Number 3, work-life balance. So I still don't understand how a lot of you will go into organisations as a new job, because I'm not talking about people who are already there, that's different, because you'd have to negotiate differently and that's accepted. But people that go into organisations and then you're saying, well, what they said at interview is not transpiring, and you're looking for a hybrid approach, but your contract doesn't reflect that, then you've got an organisation saying, no, this is a perm in-face on-site role. And suddenly you're in a situation where you think that I can bail you out of it. But how can I, if you already walk into a relationship not seeing yourself as a business and therefore not looking at favourable terms? You don't have to be a lawyer to understand a contract. I'm sorry, you don't. There are certain clauses, like a mobility clause. Mobility is literally where you are based, how you work. If it's silent about whether it's a hybrid or remote role, then you make it loud and ask for it to be amended to reflect hybrid. And when we say hybrid, you need to be prescriptive. So if you are happy to do hybrid, you need to say 2 days a week in the office, 3, like it has to actually say it, and it has to say which office. That is the level of detail that we're looking for here. When you want fairness, you need to aggressively pursue it. You see, when Kanye West wanted fairness, he aggressively pursued it. Now, his ways and his approach was unorthodox, to say the least. But the reality is, he knows that he entered a contract with less favourable terms. I don't think Adidas really truly understood how big Yeezy as a brand would be. How big it would be. Because Adidas in isolation is shit. You're buying into the Yeezy empire. Listen, if you're a sneakerhead, if you're a trainer head, you know listen, I'm a proper sneakerhead. I love trainers. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's come from my brothers, to be honest, especially one of my brothers who has always been a sneakerhead. But I don't even know where my shoes are. There's a box in one of our storage rooms, and I think it's in there, like my shoes. I don't remember the last time I wore shoes. I don't wear shoes, like office shoes. I won't do that. I know I had a couple of cute pairs. Hope they still fit. But I'm very much a sneakerhead. Do you understand? So I know within myself that when I was buying into the brand, I was buying into Yeezy, Adidas was a conduit. Do you understand? And I feel as though Kanye West didn't have good terms. He sought to negotiate, and Adidas decided that he couldn't do it without them. But they realise now that there has to be balance and fairness in the relationship, and this is the reason why they've gone back and had the conversation to get rid of the excess stock that they know will massively impact their bottom line and give them a bigger annual turnover. And when I use the whole Yeezy brand as an example, I use it as an example because it's not far removed from what we do or what you do. It's not far removed. Like, I get it. Having a business, like I have a business. I've got a couple of businesses. I've got 2 businesses, and I've got my limited companies that reflect that. But I also see myself as, working in contracting services. I'm still a business. I still see some of my friends who are in perm roles. They're a business. And I think when they started seeing themselves as a business, their approach to work completely changed, because they were looking for more favourable terms that would allow them to continue to do work, business with these organisations, whether you were a perm or whatever the situation is. And I think we need to see these everyday situations as an opportunity to learn and make ourselves better. So I learned from the Adidas situation about being so explicit in terms of explicitly clear in contracts, because you can, there's certain things that can still be quite ambiguous. You can't be afraid to ask questions, because if the worst thing someone's going to say is no, then you might as well ask. And I think I've tried as much as possible to make that clear. You've got episodes about advocating for yourself, confidence, all those things, but you have to then make the choice, do you know what I mean, to actually listen to those episodes and then proactively put that into practice in your organisations. I can't do that for you. And I talk about, Adidas, and we have to talk about Beyonce's Ivy Park brand, and it's a very lackluster brand. Again, I don't know. I don't get the passion for Ivy Park in the way that Kanye has the passion for Yeezy. And I feel like people, in organisations remind me of how Beyonce is with Ivy Park. There are some people who are Yeezys, and there's some people who are Ivy Park. And Ivy Park, to be honest, I don't think it's... I own a pair of Ivy Park slides, and I bought them slides just because I wanted to support. It wasn't really that. I don't own any Ivy Park apparel, and I don't particularly... I'm not interested in it, because I can see Adidas really trying to push it to their own benefit. Whereas with Yeezy, it's different. I see Yeezy more as the leader, Adidas as the follower. And I think Ivy Park as a brand, the reason why it hasn't done very well, and I actually received a message, I'll have a look at it now. And it said, Adidas is set to lose $200 million on Beyonce's Ivy Park this year. That's on top of the 1.3 billion loss from Yeezy. And again, when you think about Beyonce, you don't think about fashion. For me, I don't think about fashion. I think about other things. I think it was too easy for her to do Ivy Park. I think she's got a couple of nice pieces, but nothing that is making me wake up at 7:30 for the 7:30 a.m. for the 8 a.m. drop. You know, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my God, I really, you know, and she doesn't promote it very well unless she's got a drop. Whereas Kanye wears the stuff, his children wear the stuff. He had a celebrity wife that was wearing it, but people genuinely, like, even when I used to go to New York, like, I remember there was a taxi driver and he was like, oh, you know, I got the drop today. Like, there was a Yeezy drop, and like, I don't know, it's a cultural thing as well, I think, with Yeezy, but I don't think Beyonce embodies it in the same way. And you have that in the workplace where people are happy to coast and they don't go hard. They are just, and you have to decide, are you a Yeezy or are you an Ivy Park? Ivy Park people are just happy to be on the ride. This is how I see it. This is the stuff that goes on in my head. Ivy Park people are happy to go on for the ride. They don't particularly see themselves as a business, but they're happy to just do what they do what they're doing and leave. But you've got people who either want to climb the career ladder however they want to do it, but most importantly, they want to be subject matter experts and earn a certain amount of money, so they go hard. And organisation, oh, excuse me, I shouldn't have drunk that super malt before this, but Yeezy, I feel like Yeezy as a brand is running things, and and in workplaces, don't get me wrong, you need people who are going to provide balance. Not everybody can be seeing themselves as a business, be on it. Not everyone can be like that, and I understand, but you have to decide in your career, are you a Yeezy or are you an Ivy Park? That's what I'm going to say on that. Right, so if you follow me on my Instagram, and I'm going to keep this segment a bit shorter because I'm actually going to do a whole episode about interests, and, you know, if you are a contractor or consultant, whatever, or a freelance, I'm going to do a whole episode on interest. Yeah. And obviously I've almost finished the freelance contractor interim consulting masterclass. I'm almost done. That is going to be released in March, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited because I know how much that masterclass is needed. So I have two contracts. There's a particular organisation I'm contracting my services to, but I'm doing it through an agency. So my limited company is contracting with the agency for services, and I provide those services to the agency's end client. Yeah? So this end client, we're going to call them, I'm going to write this down. Well, let's call the end client Drizzle. Yeah? Drizzle is the end client. And the agency is called ABC. Yeah? Okay. So ABC have paid the first invoice I sent to ABC. They paid it late. They paid it 4 days late. And I applied interest to the invoice. However, as a gesture of goodwill, I didn't enforce it. And I didn't enforce it because sometimes as well, you have to also know how and when to pick your battles. It's like you start a perm roll and, you know, the first paycheck's a bit messed up. That was kind of the approach I took, because sometimes, you know, it's legitimate, right? Because maybe HR have not put your details correctly into the system. It's your first pay slip, you know, so you know the first one maybe, you know, okay? So that's how that, you know, because I've had that experience, or I'm open to that in my mind because I've been a perm, you take the learnings into going into contracting. And while contracting has certain risks, but so does perm. And for me, when that happened, I was like, right, cool. Not going into too much detail about it, because remember I said there's going to be a whole episode about interest, yeah? Because I feel as though we need to educate ourselves about charging interest, because a lot of us have businesses and a lot of us want to go into contracting, and a lot of us are into contracting. And especially if you work outside of IR35, it's easier to apply interest to your invoices, and it's called the statutory late payment interest. Now, I've previously spoken about this late payment invoice in the last episode, but the reason I'm speaking about it now is to give you guys an update before the final episode about this. So now you will see 1, 2, 3 information overload, Abby. So long story short, my second invoice was paid within the 14-day payment terms of my invoice. The third invoice was paid late. Now, without going into detail about the surroundings of it being paid late, the difference here is whilst statutory late payment interest is an implied term, which means it doesn't necessarily have to be noted in the invoice. It's just accepted that for business-to-business services, goods and services actually, or goods and or services, you can add statutory late payment interest if an invoice is late. So in my invoice, not only have I got clear 14-day payment terms where it says the date it's due, what the 14th day is, it also says at the bottom of my invoice, if this invoice is paid late, I reserve the right to apply statutory late payment interest and Bank of England base rate as of the day of when it falls due. Long story short, my invoice was late. In fact, it was 4 days late. And let's just say there was no communication that came through until I sent an email effectively, mentally preparing to possibly go to court for this late payment interest. So the way I operate my business is if I had to send documents or correspondence to court for any reason, I have to be seen to have done everything. And I have to also be seen to at least be given the other side the opportunity to rectify the wrong. And the reason you have to think this way is because if you think like a business, you operate like a business, you also consider the worst case scenarios that could happen. So the invoice was actually paid 4 days late, without remorse, without acknowledgement. And I say acknowledgement, i.e. acknowledgement about the domino effects and the impact it would have on me. And without giving too much away, they paid the invoice that was due minus the late payment, a statutory late payment that I had told them they would have to pay by revising the initial invoice that was late. Now, they then attempted to go to their legal support, and they forwarded me the email, a response from the legal support, because they went to go and get legal support on my requirement and request now for the late payment charge. And do you know what obliterate? I obliterated their email. Because I think, and I believe, that a lot of and I say white people because I work in a white dominated industry. So my interactions are predominantly with white people, okay? And I genuinely think that they think that as a black woman, that I just appear, I just fell out of the sky. There's no acknowledgement that I'm a qualified commercial contract consultant. Studied up to masters, part qualified lawyer. And part qualified is that I did 6 months training contract. I did not complete the rest. I had exemptions. All I had was another 6 months, and I was like, this is not for me. So I'm very learned, but I do not know everything. I do not know everything. But what I do know is that I can apply interest every single day that the invoice is late until the invoice is paid in full. So their legal support said that putting payment terms varies a contract. I'm here to tell you, queens, that is a lie. Payment terms is merely, like, an invoice is a demand for payment. That's what the legal definition of an invoice is, a demand for payment. When we say payment terms, it's the payment due date. And the payment due date and payment terms you can use interchangeably. Effectively, it's just saying when that an invoice is due and when it is due. It's not saying or trying to alter the overarching contract. That's ridiculous. The actual contract itself has payment terms in it, or at least a framework of what payment terms is. So in my particular contract, it has how payments work. For example, the mechanism that they use to provide that payment, i.e. what they do with their client. And I don't give a shit what they do with their client. My obligations within the contract, within the payment clause, is that I tell them how many days I've worked, issue them with an invoice, and they pay my invoice. Whatever the relationship or agreement they have with their end client has nothing to do with me, because I don't have a direct contract with their end client. I have a relationship and a contractual relationship with agency ABC. Yeah? Their end client, Drizzle, and agency ABC have a contract. I'm not a party to that contract. So I don't care. All I care about is the obligations in my contract with agency ABC, fulfilling those and getting paid. Okay. So as it currently stands, and obviously not filling in the blanks for you, how it was left is, obviously they've paid my invoice minus $5,500 of interest. And I say $5,500, it's probably more 6.5, if you round it up. Yeah? And I say round it up because when they eventually did pay my invoice, it was at the end of that day. So go figure. Anyway, though very arrogantly, agency ABC sent me an email to say that they're going now to approach their lawyers. I said, that's up to you. Because we have a different understanding of the contract. I said, this has got nothing to do with the understanding of the contract. This has everything to do with you acknowledging that your invoice is late. And I've got this in email, acknowledging that my invoice is late. And this has everything to do with the application of a late payment charge, a statutory late payment charge. And I've kind of left it. When you operate as a business, you move like a business. If an invoice is paid late, moving like a business is applying the statutory, what the law allows me to apply. Because what organizations are not taking into account is if you pay late and you don't even give me a heads up, even if it's 24 hours heads up, you're then placing me in a situation to incur costs as a direct effect of my late invoice. You don't know what business liabilities I have to pay. You don't know any of that, and I don't have to share that with you. All I need to do is give you an invoice, give you a due date of the invoice, and if you do not pay it, then I can apply statutory late payment charges. So today, I get an email from the CEO of agency ABC requesting a call with me Wednesday afternoon. And I just want to let you all know, I'm not here to do he said, she said. I'm not interested in all that. Was the invoice late to be paid? Yes. Am I legally allowed to apply interest? Yes. When are you going to pay my interest? Simple. Now, I'm open to negotiating that interest, and I'm going to let you know why. There are extenuating circumstances that I'm operating in that have given rise to me mentally considering the fact that I may need to negotiate. And also as well, going to court costs money, and whilst I can go through small claims court, I still need to put the letter before action together. You know, I still have to go, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I also have other things that I'm doing as well at the same time. So when I look at time and effort, money, you know, there has to be a balanced approach here from my side. But what I'm unwilling to do is walk away. I'm not going to walk away. Because I need to set a precedent that when you do business with me, you do business with me. You don't treat me or treat my business with disrespect. And that disrespect is this. If you knew that there was an issue with the invoice, a possible late payment, even based on the terms of that contract, you have flow down terms with your end client, i.e. when they need to pay you. So they were late paying you. So what consequences have you put in your contract with your end client, Drizzle, that if they pay you late, that you can even charge them interest? I put it to you that they don't have anything like that. So then they think that they can adopt a paid when paid approach with me. And that just does not work for my business, because that is not the type of contract or arrangement that I've entered into. You see, you have to have leverage as well. In the same way that Kanye West and the Yeezy brand has used their leverage, i.e. the bottom line money, the profits that they actually make for Adidas. So for me as a business, what is my leverage? And I'll tell you what my leverage is. With the end client Drizzle, I'm doing a massive piece of work on a project. I'm the only one that has the commercial and contractual acumen to do this project. That's why they asked me to come in, because I didn't want to take this contract. I got 2 phone calls pleading with me. What do you want? What terms do you want? Because they knew what they needed for this project. I've taken this project 85% of the way, and I have almost delivered this 2 months before it's due. And God's so kind, there's a massive international board meeting happening with this organization in March. And guess who's presenting to that board? Yours truly. So, Agency ABC have 2 options, and I've given them 2 options. Pay it. Pay my late payment, statutory late payment. Or, if you don't pay, I will then invoke the termination clause. And may I add, the fact that you've paid my invoice late is a breach of contract. So I could actually terminate with immediate effect because you've breached my contract, but I'm not going to do that. I will give you 4 weeks notice and you tell your end client. And I'm going to tell you queens that they're terrified of it. Should I tell you why? Number one, they're going to lose money because they make a lot of commission off the back of me. And number two, if they tell the client's going to they're going to go mad. In fact, the client's going to go so crazy because they're going to be like, well, if Toya's not here to present to the board, who's going to do this? The project's only 80% of the way. We need, they're going to go into panic mode. Now, I have leveraged that. And I've leveraged it because the project sponsor I work with, I was very honest. I said, listen, this is how, and queens, what I'm telling you is how you use your leverage. Sometimes you have to be a bit manipulative, you do. So with Agency ABC now, the position we're in now is the CEO wants to have a meeting with me on Wednesday. And I don't care who he is. He can be the CEO of Vagina Limited. I don't give a shit. You want to do business, you do business properly. But I'm not going to talk too much. He said he's read all the email trails, so you already know my position. So what are you coming to me with? This is his meeting. So how he wants it to be is completely up to him. But at the end of it, there's a choice to be made. And if he doesn't make the choice, I'm going to make it for him. And I will terminate my contract with 4 weeks notice. And believe me, if I terminate with 4 weeks notice, they wouldn't have put the board meeting together. Because I asked them, when's the board date? They said they don't know. But they think I'm there until the 1st of May. So they think they've got enough time. So you see where this is going. So then, the project sponsor today, I haven't spoken to him for a few weeks. He wanted to catch up with me. And I said to the project sponsor, I said, oh, when is this board meeting? He said, Toya, I don't know. We're trying to arrange it. We know we've got you to the 1st of May. So even if this board meeting takes place in April, it's fine. And to be honest, we're almost in March. It probably will. I said, cool. I said, excuse me, I need to give you a heads up about something because, I want to be transparent as possible, but bearing in mind, I don't have a contract with you guys, Drizzle, because you guys are the end client and you're not mine. I said, listen, my invoice was paid late. And I know it's because Drizzle were having account problems and that's not my business. I actually don't care. But the domino effect is that I've had to take on financial liabilities to mitigate the late payment of that invoice. And I have passed on those costs via charging interest. So Agency ABC has basically refused to pay the interest, and I'm not here to do a he said, she said, so I'm considering terminating. Oh my God. The project sponsor, he almost lost his damn mind. He was like, no. It goes, we paid late. We paid Agency ABC late, and we need to take responsibility for that. So actually, agency ABC needs to pass the cost and we'll pay those costs. Just simple like that. But the reason why agency ABC is not saying anything to their end client is because they're trying to maintain the relationship. They don't want to spoil the relationship. That's why they don't have interest, late payment interest in their contract with their end client. So can you see how they're pampering them, but they want to make me uncomfortable? But I'm going to use my leverage, and I'm going to be shameless with using my leverage. The same way Kanye is shameless about using his leverage, and his leverage is his popularity, his brand, and the fact that he knows Yeezy brings in billions of pounds a year. And without him, you don't have Yeezy. Without Kanye West, you do not have it. You can't repackage it and call it Adidas. No one gives a shit about Adidas. You cannot find a subject matter expert like me in a short space of time before the board meeting. You cannot do it. Especially because I've been on this contract since November. I've taken you 80% of the way. And there's no one in your organization that has the skill set to take it 100% of the way. Hence why you went to market to find me anyway. So if I know what my leverage is, and you know what my leverage is, and I'm asserting that leverage, you're going to have to make a decision if you're going to pay that invoice or not. That late payment charge, you're going to have to pay it. And if I don't have to negotiate it, I ain't going to. But some money has to come out. Because I need to teach you a lesson. That when you do business with a black woman, do business properly. Don't take us for idiot, because we're not idiots. I cannot come having laboured, qualified, studied, and then to sit at the table with you, and then you pay my invoice late, and I should just be grateful that you've even paid it. Are you mad? Are you actually crazy? I will fill in the blanks in an episode just called statutory late payment interest, as I'll call it. Then I will fill in the blanks for you, and then you're gonna really understand that a lot of these organizations are running mad. They're actually crazy, but they're banking on you to not know what you are like, what you can enforce. They're banking on you to not have the information. They're banking on you to be limited in your knowledge so that they can use you like fried rice with shrimp. No, you can't do that with me. And don't get me wrong, I will be the first to tell you, and I've got an episode on it. It's not every war you must go to battle. But you know something? There are some things that you have to put your foot down. Because if you don't, every single invoice will be late. And luckily for me, I have financial literacy. So I already package myself. But they don't know that. And it's not for them to know. At the end of the day, I'm running a business, not a charity. They paid their internet bill. They paid their salaries for their employees. They paid their IT staff. But it's me you want to pay late. No apology, no nothing. No, and the worst part of it is when the invoice was late, I emailed them and said, it's 5 p.m. My invoice is due today. Nothing is entered the account. Can I have an update? No one responded. But the reason I did that is not because I wanted a response. I'm thinking about if I have to take them to a small claims court. I wanted to show that even I tried to mitigate the financial impact of that late invoice. But they didn't bother to meet me halfway. So now they didn't bother to meet me halfway. I now have to foot the bill for that financial impact. You must have lost your mind. Can you see when you arm yourself with information and then you're able to apply it to day-to-day life, especially in the working world, you give yourself leverage, you give yourself an edge. That information is power, and not a lot of people have it. If you start operating like an Ivy Park, it ain't gonna bode well. Because the only person that's gonna be at a disadvantage is you. When you move like a brand, when you move like a business, when you move like a Yeezy, you arm yourself with information, you're able to enforce that information, you're able to have the confidence to leverage yourself to get more favourable terms, more money, and better working conditions. But a lot of you don't want to out of fear, and I'm realising that. But what I'm hoping is with the access to information, especially through the internet, social media, the fact that we're able to have a conversation about things like this and have this safe space, that it gives you the confidence to be like, you know what, I could do this. And this is why I keep saying part of the leverage is interviewing all the time. It's not every job you're going to interview for that you're going to take. You could be in a job and you've been there for like 2-3 years maybe, for example, and you're doing interviews. It's not that you're going to take the job, but it gives you a confidence, in a leveraged confidence, that actually there is a whole market out there, that if I'm not happy here, I can go. And I'm doing these interviews not because I'm looking for another job, but actually I want to see what's in the market. I want to see if I can get a better situation. And that ultimately is how you climb the career ladder. What I didn't do when I was a perm is I didn't go to interviews, you know. I had that old archaic view of a perm role, that you stay there for 5-6 years and somebody looks at you and thinks, oh, this is a committed person, oh, fantastic. It doesn't always work like that. And it doesn't work like that because the world of work has changed as we know it. The pandemic fundamentally changed the working world. It did. Nobody's looking for Monday to Friday anymore in the office, unless that's truly what your passion is. Yeah? People are talking about the cost of living crisis, and I'm actually asking organisations, what are you doing so that I'm able to survive and be able to still work for you? You've got people asking that question. We're talking about more favourable terms. It's no longer a taboo to work from home anymore. Whereas before, people would be like, oh, you're working from home? Oh, are you really working? You know, no one's having that conversation anymore. Because we all know fundamentally, when we was in lockdown for almost 2 years, we were effectively working from home. And the key word is working. Well, you can work from anywhere. But the key word is there was still productivity. Organisations, yes, organisations were surviving. And the ones that weren't surviving were the ones that weren't forward thinking, that weren't considering the fact that people could work from home and still be productive. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I wanted to share that, and I thought that was, you know, quite important that I share that, give that update, but also as well that I give a live example about kind of seeing yourself as a business. It's something I talk about all the time. But the body of this podcast is really talking about, my wedding blessing and kind of where I'm at now, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, whatever you want to talk about. So I have shared with you previously, and I have a mother and daughter masterclass about my very dysfunctional relationship with my mum, who I believe is a chronic narcissist. In every sense of the word. She has not been formally diagnosed, but I'm telling you that my mum is a narcissist. And to have grown up with her, I will say, like, my formative years, I had an amazing childhood because, yeah, we didn't have a lot, but I didn't know that. Yeah? And I recognise now that it was an amazing childhood because my mum could control me and control, because obviously I'm young, and I'm a baby, I'm a kid, I'm a child, I'm an infant, whatever it is. So you rely on your parents to be in control. That's the person you look up to. But my mum, I think, spiraled when I became an adult, when I, had my own mind and started making decisions for myself. And I think my biggest bully was my mum. Like, now I've had the opportunity to do the work, and it's a continued laboured work. Because it's like an open wound, you see. And the thing is with an open wound is there's a scab, but it never really heals. And every so often you get triggered and then the wound starts to pick. So you have to, for me anyway, I found it as a work in progress, kind of dealing with my traumas and understanding that they're life events that are going to trigger those traumas. So my wedding blessing was a life event that triggered that trauma because my mum wasn't at my wedding. And that's not how, as I grew up, I would think of my wedding to be. And I think the worst part of it is when you grow up with a narcissist, TikTok is amazing because honestly, I really do understand a lot of my childhood and why certain things happen by understanding narcissism and how my mum operated from that space and how it affected everybody, how it affected my brothers, how it affected me. And I definitely was the odd child, the one that was left out. And it's because I held my mum accountable. I knew right from wrong, and I wasn't afraid to tell my mum when she was wrong, or if I didn't agree with her, I wasn't afraid to vocalise that I don't agree. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, that's the worst thing you can do. And as part of that, the dysfunction with my siblings has come because my mum has basically ostracized me because she can no longer control me. With my brothers, she can do that. And what that has meant is that my mum has completely isolated me as a form of punishment, in the hope that I won't be able to progress in life, because without my mum, I'm nothing. And that's a lie. That's a bold, outlandish lie. You see, I'd like to think that when our parents have children, or have us, and we mature into adults, that our parents become more, or they start off by being carers and caretakers and guardians, not controlling dictators who think that they can do no wrong. And I'm not going to lie to you, I think I used to be really miserable, hoping for that mother-daughter relationship that everyone talks about and knowing that it would never come, feeling that I'm not good enough, feeling that it was all in my head and I was the problem. I watched one of my brothers get married, and I felt so sorry for him, because as part of my mother's narcissism, if she's not center of attention, then all hell will break loose, and that's exactly what happened. And actually, when he started to confess his experiences with my mum whilst he was getting married, even on the day, I knew very early on that could never be me, because my mum is married. Like, my dad's passed away, but my mum had that opportunity to marry, enjoy her marriage. No one's getting involved, no one's making it about them, but she wanted to cheat my brother out of that. And to think that even on the day, my mum was just awful with my brother, but she was worse with me anyway. And even on the day, I felt very much ostracized. I felt like I wasn't part of the family, and it was a deliberate attempt on her end to punish me for not licking her ass, and I'm not going to do that. I'm allowed to be my own person. I'm allowed to have my own opinion, and I'm allowed to disagree with her if I don't agree with the way she's doing things. And I think with my wedding blessing, I'm not going to lie to you, I think one of the best things I ever did was actually have the wedding blessing that I actually wanted. Luckily for me and Kay, when we got married, the summer of July 2021, I think it's 2021. Yeah, it was 2021. We were only allowed 12 people because of lockdown. It was the best thing ever. Not only did we save a lot of money, but it was just peaceful. And I think the way I view weddings has changed since my dad died. When my dad was alive, I saw myself in a white dress. I saw myself being walked down the aisle with my dad. Everything for me to do with my wedding was about me and my dad. And my dad gave me away that picture perfect, whimsical approach to weddings. But when my father died, that all changed for me. So being a party of 12 at a registry in central London is, for me, like, beautiful. And I loved it. And I had the best time. The pictures testify of that. So the wedding blessing for me was more from a cultural perspective, and also paying respect to my ancestors. That was really important to me, and paying homage to them and thanking them, and also, you know, paying my respects to my dad and acknowledging certain things within a trad wedding that I felt that were really important to my dad and would be really important to me as well, and to Kay. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not going to lie to you, there was a tinge of sadness, because I thought to myself, like, my mum has one opportunity in terms of, you know, the fact that it's, you know, I'm the girl. She's got one opportunity to exercise free will and make a choice, because it's not like that my mum didn't know the wedding was happening. But my mum made an active choice not to be a part of it, but thought that if she didn't, or if she wasn't a part of it, I would go begging her. And I'm not a begging type. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to beg you to do the right thing. I'll give you the option. And if you choose not to exercise that option, then you have to live with that choice, and you have to live with the consequences of that choice. And that's the position that my mum is in now. And you know, the worst part of it is when you're dealing with a narcissist, they lack the ability to have self-reflection. So as far as they're concerned, you're the reason for everything. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, I was a perfect daughter, but what I was is a damn good daughter. That's what I was. I was not perfect, but I was a damn good one. So to be mistreated in the way that I had been for many years, and to be able to sit up and say, actually, this is not right, go through therapy, get the tools, and be able to work through certain things, has probably been the most profound thing that's ever happened in my life. And it's meant that in certain milestones that are tinged with sadness, there's also a lot of strength, because I also recognize that I get to make choices, and I get to be happy, and I give myself permission to be happy. And part of giving myself permission to be happy is also knowing that I'm deserving of happiness. For years and years and years, I never thought that. Listen, I should have gotten married a couple of years ago, but I was hoping that the relationship with my mum would be repaired, or there'd be some type of miracle. And as the years were progressing, and everybody was moving on with their lives, my brother was getting married, I was realising the only person that I was cheating was myself, because I was hoping for something that clearly would never happen. And my mum knew that she was deliberately preventing me from my happiness by making me feel as though change was within the reach, and it never was. And I kind of feel sorry for my mum, because I don't think she really understands that cutting her nose to spite her face means that she has no nose. When you cut your arm off to spite yourself, or when you make a decision, you may think you're coming to spite me, but you're really not. And the reason you're really not is because I've made a decision to move forward with my life. You've made a decision to stay where you are. You've made a decision to not have a relationship with me, because what I'm not going to do is allow you to continue to bully me, or continue to make me feel less than, or continue to dictate what you believe I'm deserving of happiness to be. That's not it. You've lived your life. You've made your choices. You've used your free will. I have to do the same. And I'm talking to you as a 38-year-old woman here. I feel like if I knew now what I should have known, maybe my late 20s, early 30s, I feel like I could have made decisions sooner. I probably still would have made the same decisions, but I would have made them sooner, because I feel like what I have been robbed of is time for certain things. I feel like I have, because I kept hoping, wishing, and I was always arguing, trying to get my point across, until I started going to therapy, and I realised I could argue till the cows come home. There come a point where you're dealing with a narcissist, they just don't care enough, because if it isn't by their script, the script don't exist, and I can't operate like that. Then I thought to myself, now that I've gone through the wedding process, if my mum had been at my wedding, I think it would have taken a completely different tone. Because if you see in any of the pictures, everybody is just laughing and joking. The vibe at my wedding blessing, I kid you not, and I swear to God, it was just a vibe. And I said to Kay, and Kay said to me, what we wanted more than anything else is just for people to be comfortable and happy. And this is the reason why, there was a sweet table of like vintage sweets from the year that we grew up, the 80s. There was a donut wall. I'm not a 3-layered cake type of woman. I am, that person that will have a donut wall rather than an actual cake. And I'm not a cutting the cake type of person, because fundamentally how I view weddings has changed, right, since my dad died. So conceptually and practically on a wedding, that is going to, my change and how I see weddings is going to be reflected on the actual wedding. We did a minute silence for my dad. I had the calabash with water in it. There were certain nods to my dad and my culture, and there was a few more things as well. If you know, you know, and I did wear the traditional Igbo dress with the beads. I don't typically wear red, but I wore red. And then I paid homage to my dad with the lion's head, because it was actually buried in lion's head, the material lion's head. So that was a nod again to my dad. And for me, I felt like no one gets to dictate how I pay respect to my dad. No one gets to do that. I have a strong enough bond and relationship with my ancestors that I know that if this wasn't supposed to be, it wouldn't have been. Period. Do you understand? But I can't put my life on hold in the hope that my mum is going to be a mother to me when she's clearly incapable of putting me first, or at least considering my feelings. Like, I've spent a lifetime considering her feelings at the detriment of my own, and I've been through so much, and I feel like things have started to come out with me a bit more now as well, emotionally, because even though I was going through therapy and I was working through some things, I was still acquiring the tools to deal with other things that maybe I wasn't able to deal with at that time. Now that I definitely feel like I'm in a safe space, and I mean that in every sense of the word, now that I feel like I'm in a safe space, certain things are starting to come out now. And God's so kind, because I've gone through therapy, I'm able to use those tools to work through a lot of the trauma that I didn't feel safe enough to work through before. And I'm not sitting here saying that my mum is a bad person. I just think that she lacks the maturity and ability to understand how to parent me as an adult, because she's so fixated in parenting me as a child because she had control. And I think the lack of control has sent her spiraling, and she doesn't know what to do. And it's so disappointing, it's so upsetting, because I feel like I don't need an apology at this point of my life. I'm not interested. Like, if it was an apology, it would be a bloody long one. So it's not about that. I'm more interested in acknowledging for herself that there needs to be change behaviour by actively doing the change behaviour. Do you understand? And I feel like culture plays a massive, massive role in the narcissism. And you may have an amazing relationship with your mum, but that is not the story for everybody. And it's really, I think, problematic when we start projecting the stereotypical mother-daughter relationship on people, because what that does is it also tells people that they're the reason, so the daughter's the problem, when in fact there's no consideration that the mother could be the problem. And there was something that actually I saw on TikTok, and I posted it, and I want to play it for you guys. Hopefully it's loud enough. Hang on.
Notice that when an adult child chooses to not have a relationship with a parent, it's always, but she's your mom, but he's your dad. You only have one dad, you only have one mom. And it's never, wow, what could a parent do to cause their child to make this decision? Or it's never, but they're your children. How could you treat your children that way? Why is it that the responsibility of the relationship is placed on the child and not the person that raised them?
If you deep that, you'll understand how powerful that is. You know, the responsibility of a relationship is both ways. And ultimately, when a child walks away from a parent's relationship, when they go no contact, there is never the question asked, especially in the Nigerian community, never, what has happened or what has that parent done that has given rise to this situation? I don't think I have ever heard that. Ever. I don't think I've ever. I only hear it from people who genuinely understand narcissism and having a narcissistic parent, or people who have had to do the same thing, i.e. go no contact. And I'm going to give you an example of something. 2 months before my wedding blessing, I got in contact with one of my dad's friends, and it's somebody who I really respect as well, and somebody who was at my brother's wedding, but somebody who I would love to be at my wedding. So I called him and I invited him and his wife, and I said, Uncle, I need to also explain to you kind of high level that, you know, me and my mum are not in a good space, Now, I'm not stupid. I know that I place him in a very difficult position, because if he comes to my wedding, my mum, being the narc that she is, will see it as a complete disrespect to her, etc, etc, etc. But what I was very clear on is, without giving too much away to him, but enough for him to make an informed decision about whether he wanted to come. Because what I didn't want to do is pretend and then maybe he calls my mum, and, you know, I'm not that person. I was honest enough to say to him, don't have a good relationship with my mum, etc, etc. Long story short, he called my mum, and my mum, basically, she flew into a rage, because clearly she's realising that this wedding's going to happen with or without her. But also, I don't know what shit she must have told him. And I said to him, because he rang me, and he said, oh, he spoke to my mum, blah, blah, blah. So I said to him, Uncle, what did I do to my mum? He goes, what do you mean? I goes, well, you said that she was saying that, you know, I haven't spoken to her, this, that, other. But she's upset and she's offended because that's all you've said to me. But can you tell me what she told you I've done? And he went quiet. And he said, oh, I done that, because that's what they call me, I done that. So I done that, to be honest, I wasn't really catching that. I said, what do you mean you wasn't catching that? You've just said to me, my mum's upset, she's angry, she feels disrespected, she feels all these things, all these heightened emotions full of hot air. But you haven't actually told me the reason she feels disrespected. What have I done to her? And he could not answer. But you know what he did say? He said, please, I really want your mum at your wedding. Can you not just fake it? I burst out laughing. I was laughing uncontrollably. I said, Uncle, please, I'm not disrespecting you by laughing. But the reason I'm laughing is because you have defined everything that I have had to run away from. And that is being fake. I don't possess a fake bone in my body. To fake a relationship with my mum so that she feels... So effectively, when you're asking me to fake it, you're asking me to kiss her ass. You're asking me to go on my bended knees and ask my mum for forgiveness, but you don't know what I'm asking for forgiveness for. Because there's nothing. I've done nothing to her. I have done absolutely nothing other than hold her accountable for the way she has treated me and hold her accountable and ask her to refrain from mistreating me. And there's certain things that she has done that I am choosing not to tell you, but that I've had to say enough is enough. But rather than tell me what I've done to my mum, you're telling me you don't know. So you tell me that you was on the phone to my mum for 2.5 hours and you still don't know what the issue is. But you expect me to be fake. Well, I don't know what being fake about. Because I can't fake a relationship. I haven't had a relationship with my mum for a few years. I can't fake how I feel because I've been traumatized since the age of 18. I can't fake feeling cheated because my mum does not know how to parent an adult daughter. I can't fake that. But I said to him, you know what I can do? I can respect you enough to not be offended if you cannot come to my wedding. And Queens, he didn't come to my wedding. And I wasn't heartbroken about it or upset the way I thought I would be. I was relieved. Because I thought to myself, even if he was to come, I don't know what he's coming with. He could think he's doing a great thing and then turn up with my mum. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So in a way, I kind of felt quite blessed because I felt like, Dad, I'm trying here. You can see I'm trying. But ultimately, I'm not going to compromise myself for the sake of culture. I'm not doing that. Because I believe that the culture has become so embroiled in toxicity that if I allowed myself to continue to be mistreated, I would become toxic to be able to survive in a culture whereby my mum gets the permission to do what she wants with me. And I'm not prepared to do it. I'm not prepared to be like my brother, whose wedding was made miserable by my mum, even on the day. That's not going to be me. And I don't give a shit who it offends. I don't give a shit who's got an opinion. I don't give a shit. Because on the day of the wedding blessing, it was just about me and Kay. And the vibes and prayers and covering and love we received from our friends. Listen, the pictures are so fire. Please, like all these wedding digests, they should get in contact. The pictures are fire. Down to the material, down to the DJ, the MC, the caterer, the balloon artist. We had everything. You know, we had food later on in the evening, so we had lunch and we had food in the evening, and we had takeaway containers. I said, everybody, I want everyone to feel comfortable. Take food away home with you. Like, what do you mean? Like, do you understand that we had music, we had dancing, we had games, we had fun, we had laughter, but most of all, we had peace. We had peace. And if I would do it all again, I'd make all the same decisions. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because I've waited several years to be in a position where I felt like I could get married and didn't need the permission from my mum. because part of that permission came with sacrificing who I am. And my mum has used the words and said, Toya needs to come on her bended knees and ask me for forgiveness. But nobody, and I mean no one, can tell me what I'm asking for forgiveness for. But let me tell you what the forgiveness is. My mum wants me to seek forgiveness for having my own mind. She wants me to seek forgiveness for saying, no, this is not how I want to be treated. No, you don't get to bully me, mum. You don't get to make me feel like I'm less than so that you can feel like you're better than. You don't get to make me feel small so that you feel big. And you don't get to mistreat me because you think you can, or you think that the culture gives you a pass. No, I'm a human being. I cut and bleed. You've had your wedding. Let me have mine. You've had your happiness. Let me have mine. You want to be, listen, if you're a narcissist for whatever's happened in your life, fair enough. I've tried to get you help. You're not interested. What you're interested in is making me as miserable as you. And I cannot have that. So when you actually speak to people about narcissism, sometimes the way to manage narcissism is to literally lock the person off. And I'm not saying that if my mum asked me for help tomorrow that I wouldn't help her, but I would help her, but I wouldn't involve myself. That's the truth. And I'd only be helping her because she's my mum, not for anything else. And I would only help what I can do. I'm not going to climb every mountain, drop from every rooftop. I'm not doing that. Because let me tell you something. If I dropped dead tomorrow, I don't even think my mum would cry a tear. I don't even think narcissists have tear ducts to cry. All my mum would be interested in is what she could get out of it. I.e., what are the assets? And financially, that's all she cares. She doesn't care about me. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with it because I recognise that my mum is limited. And what we as people do is we refuse to see how people are limited. And if you refuse to see where people are limited, you're continuing to have these expectations that cannot be met. And that's the truth. It's a tough pill to swallow to think somebody who carried you for 9 months lacks the ability to parent you as an adult. It's really, really a tough pill to swallow. But then as an adult yourself, you have to get to a position where you ask yourself some questions. Why is your happiness intertwined with a person that has clearly shown you that they do not prioritize your happiness in any way? Why are you hell-bent on a relationship that somebody has shown you that they're not interested in? In the same way people get to exercise free will, you have to respect people's decision making when they exercise that free will. And sometimes that free will that they've exercised hurts. It hurts like a dagger to the heart, but you still have to respect that those are their choices. And that is what I had to learn in therapy. That my mum has exercised her free will, and I don't like those choices. They hurt me, but I have to respect them because those are her choices. But what cannot happen is me pausing my life, expecting those choices to change, because I know in my heart that all I want is love. She can't give it. She's limited. She cannot give me love because it has to be conditional on something. And let me tell you something. I have had to get to a point of recognizing, and I've said this before and I'm saying it again, I used to buy my mum's love. I used to buy her materialistic things because she's a materialistic person. And she loved me insofar as that materialistic thing was still new. When it wasn't new again, I was the worst person. I wasn't loved. I wasn't nothing. I was nothing but what she could get. And I've got so many examples of it. How can your mother effectively be jealous of you because you represent the younger her of who she could have been? Because that's when you talk about mother-daughter relationship and narcissism, that's actually that's the way it starts. If you don't know, get to know, because that's where it starts. That's it. And then a narc will sit there and blindly swear they're not jealous. Tell them about your successes. Tell them about your plans and see the reaction you get. The venomous hatred because you're actually wanting more for yourself, and you're not running around begging for scraps of love that they can't give you, or just for scraps of anything. I'm past that stage of my life, and it's sad to say it, but it is. And I think because there are certain milestones that happen, like getting married, it plays on your insecurities of what you don't have, or it plays on what could be. But I'm here to tell you that there are so many women that have reached out to me a couple of years ago, recently as well, who went through this process where their mothers wasn't there, and there's certain milestones that their mothers wasn't there for, but they still went through it, and they still survived, and they're still living. What I have learned, and what I want to, make sure that I share, but make sure that you do better than me. Don't put your life on hold because you're waiting for a narcissist to change. Change and narcissism don't work hand in hand. It just doesn't. And that narcissism is rooted in whatever trauma that person has, that they were not willing to be honest about to themselves, let alone to you. Cover yourself with people who genuinely love you, because I'm telling you right now, that purity in love, there are people that have it. And as human beings, we're all limited. But the greatest love that you can receive is the one you give yourself. You have to police your heart. You have to be able to recognize that you deserve. And you have to be in a position where you understand that when other people exercise free will, you may not like the choice that they make, but you have to respect it, even though it hurts. Even if it hurts. Even if it doesn't make sense. It's not for you to make sense. That's somebody exercising their choice, their free will. And it will seem crazy and it will seem mad, but that's their choice. So, for me, this is why I am the way I am. And this is why I say to people, you can't bully me. It's impossible. You can't bully me, because my biggest bully was my mother. I survived. So how you gonna bully me? You can't. The reason why I'm as hard as nails is because I've had to be. Because from the age of 18, when I realised that my mum's love was conditional, when I realised I was being treated differently to my brothers, when I realised that my emotions and my feelings didn't mean shit, I had to become my own mother, effectively. When I left home at 21, when I had no business leaving home, I had to learn to survive. And for many, 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 many years, I've been in survival mode. This is the first time in my life at the age of 38, I'm no longer in survival mode. I'm in preservation mode. Preserving all the things that I've learned. Preserving myself as a person. Preserving my heart. Preserving my peace. I'm in preservation mode. Imagine being in over 25 years, and I say over 25 years, of survival mode. Then transitioning into preservation mode. It's a lot. It's really a lot, because I've had to continuously mourn the old Toya. And I say the old Toya because it's not me anymore. I've had to, and things trigger me, and I re-mourn that person. But then I go right back into preservation mode. And then having to explain to Kay what my trauma has looked like means that when I'm explaining it, I'm living it. And it's really, really hard, because you're mourning it, you're living it to explain it to somebody that you're living with and that you're married to, but you're also having to make sure that you're using the skills that you've learned through therapy to still be able to work through what you're mourning through. It's a lot. It's very exhausting. But then the other side of it is, when you're in preservation mode, you're in protective mode, and you're recognizing where your flaws sit too, but also what you're deserving of. And I have to regularly, and Kay regularly reminds me that I deserve, I'm allowed, I can. And I think being an empath doesn't help, I'm not gonna lie, because you're constantly considering other people's feelings. But I've also learned the skills and the tools to be empathetic to myself as well. Because for a long time, I used to cry rivers and cry streams, like feel like I was constantly crying and emptying myself and mourning and And then realizing that whilst I'm going through that process, the person and relationship I'm mourning is living, laughing at me, literally laughing at me. Then you've got to get to a point where you're like, this is not good for me. This is not healthy for me anymore. And actually, health is more than eating greens and vegetables. Health is actually doing what is in your best interest to give you the opportunity to be peaceful. That's healthy. Healthy is saying, I would love this, but I know you're limited. You can't give me this, so I have to give it to myself. Healthy is seeking peace within yourself. For years, I never had no peace. Never had any peace. When my dad died, peace was the furthest thing to me. When my dad died, my whole world collapsed. And it collapsed because I knew that relationship could never be duplicated, never be replicated. And my mum laughed at my inability to get myself together because I was in a deep state of mourning. Because everybody else was getting on with it, but I was still mourning. I was mocked. Listen, I've seen stuff here. I've been through so much in my life. Believe me, there was a quote I read. When you see a really strong person, just know that person has walked through the fire to be the person that they are. So when I don't take shit, preservation. When I'm advocating for myself, preservation. When I'm loving on myself and doing my self-care, preservation. When I'm basking and allowing myself to bask in the fruits of my labor, my tears that are now joy, preservation. I'm sharing this because I know there's somebody out there or many people out there that need to hear this. And what I don't do is walk in bullshit or fantasy. I walk in my truth. And sometimes that truth is difficult to hear, but I'm going to walk in it. I remember when I was more on Snapchat, before the podcast was even a thing, and I would talk about mother-daughter relationship, and people would share, my inbox, my DMs, they were full. And there were two people in particular, and both of them happened to be Nigerian. One of them is, I think she's Rivers, but speaks Igbo, or more affiliates with Igbo. The other one was Igbo. And they tried to shame me out of speaking my truth. Tried to stop me from speaking my truth. You know what the irony is? The one that was a female that was trying to shame me, her trauma that she has about whatever she went through in her life is what is choking her in a chokehold. But she's got time to come and tell me that I shouldn't speak my truth because of culture. Stuff you and stuff culture. If culture's going to make me choke, stuff it. Culture's not about that. Culture is where we're from. Culture is who we are. But culture does not dictate that I should not speak on, work through, bring light to what is choking me. So what you're basically saying, because of culture, I should choke and die. I will not choke and die. But rather, you should choke on your inability to be honest with yourself. That instead of you to face your front and focus on your traumas, I'm focusing on mine and actually using my platform to allow other women to at least know that they're not the only ones. But yet you want to shame me. And the worst part of it is, who's covered in shame now? Her. She's covered in it. Because she knows that, number one, that it comes a time in life you're going to have to face your future. And if you're unwilling to do the work, you will continue to live in trauma. And then 10, 20 years go by and then you end up bitter. Shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And looking at me, who's walked and worked through my trauma, and at least I'm in a situation where I can say, there are women out there that I know within my community that I have helped. There's black women that I know for a fact. In being honest with myself, not only has it been cathartic for me, it gives other women legitimacy of their own feelings, of things that they've been through that they can relate to me and able to work through. And that for me is good enough for me. Do you understand? If I was really to sit here and tell you all the trauma I have been through that has led me to this point, some of you would literally stand still frozen. Because bear in mind, Even when my father died and I tried to take my life twice, if you start digging deeper, I had a lot of trauma from my mum. I had a lot of it. On top of losing my... Do you want to go there? So when you see somebody walking in their purpose, when you see somebody making you uncomfortable because they're speaking their truth, that's work for you to do. And again, when you're working through your trauma, you're able to see when people are projecting. I keep telling people, my biggest bully was my mum. So you can't bully me. It's impossible. It can't happen. Rather, you want to bully me, I'll just cut you off. I don't have time. I won't even argue with you. But when I cut you off, you have time to think. You'll be back. They always come back. Why? Because I ain't done shit to you other than make you uncomfortable with telling my truth. Close your ears then. You don't have to listen. But what you will not do is silence me. No, sorry, I cannot be silenced. Because I'm walking and working in my purpose. And if my purpose is to serve my community through my experiences, my blueprint, I'm prepared to do it. At least if I drop dead tomorrow, dead, no one can say Toy didn't leave some form of a legacy, some form of something. I've tried my best. Queens, please don't be shamed into not opening up. Do not be shamed in feeling hurt. Don't be shamed by the culture that will continuously tell you that you ain't shit, that your parents are always right, and you will never amount to anything. It's all a load of shit. Shit! No one's looking for perfection. No one's perfect. But what you cannot do is punish somebody for having their own mind and being independently minded because you can't control them. That's not how life works. Life is to be lived for the living. I was literally like the Walking Dead. Because I didn't even... Do you know... I even down to the fact that I was a people pleaser, I didn't understand that had actually come from the fact that I didn't get the acknowledgement from my mum. I was always trying to buy her love. I was always trying to be seen. I was always trying to be good enough. So what happened is in the world of work and in my friendship groups, I was a people pleaser. Because I felt if you're pleased with me, you'll like me. And if you'll like me, you'll love me. The love I never got from my mum, then I was becoming a people pleaser. And I was the most miserable. Because you know the problem with being a people pleaser? You can't please people all of the time. And that's the worst part. Because then you're in this rotation of trying. No. When I worked through why I was a people pleaser and I traced it back to my mum, I had to work on it. I was working on it. When I was in the world of work, I was a people pleaser. And I say when I was in the world of work, when I was a perm, I was a people pleaser. I will stay in a job because I want my manager to be happy with me. I was a people pleaser. I will work sometimes until midnight just to people please. But do I get that bonus? No. And if I do, it's incremental 2%. Do they recognize me? No. Would you promote me? No. But you're happy for me to train somebody who's been in the job 2 months while I've been there 5 years. Bullshit. Bullshit. So you can see how things start coming and seeping into your everyday life. And I put a stop to it. I said, no. When I went to therapy, I had to deal with it. It was very, very uncomfortable looking at myself in the mirror. I was fucking ugly. Yeah, inside I was ugly. Because I was burying so much pain. I was so upset. I was so angry. I was a people pleaser. I didn't understand what having your own mind meant. So I followed the crowd what they meant. Because then if I follow the crowd, again, I'll people please. Bullshit. When I started feeling peace is when I became an independent thinker. And I had freedom of choice and mind. I don't actually owe anybody any explanation. I don't. Because when I was going to therapy, I was there by my ones. When I was in tears on the floor, crouched on the floor, not knowing how I'm going to be able to move in life, not having the picture perfect that my culture dictates. No one was there. It was me on my ones. When I couldn't even afford a sanitary towel, nobody was there. I was on my ones. When I couldn't even afford emergency on the electricity, nobody was there. I was on my ones. So now that I am in a position whereby I'm able to confront those things, work through those things, I don't actually owe anybody an explanation. Don't ask me questions about my mum. Go and ask her. Don't come to me asking me, when's the last time I spoke? Go and ask my mum. Don't ask me. And that's my response. Don't ask me. Now they don't ask me, but they're too afraid to ask her. Shame. Anyway, those who have ears, let them hear. I hope you receive this episode. I hope this episode resonates with you. I hope you're able to share this episode, because let me tell you something, there is a power in what? Information, knowledge, and the learning lessons. You don't always have to go through something to learn the lesson, you know. You can learn it vicariously through what other people have gone through. Let's just say that. I am so happy because my creativity, my creative spark has come back. So I've created so many TikToks, and I keep telling people this new financial year, are you ready for me? I've got a lot coming. A lot. I've got so much coming. So if you don't follow me on TikTok, it's Toya Washington. Go and follow me. And I'm telling you, this new financial year, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. And in terms of my YouTube channel, I'm uploading bi-weekly, which I'm really enjoying. I love editing. I've got so much vlog footage, especially from the wedding and stuff. So make sure you go onto my YouTube channel. It's called At Home with Toya. That's At Home with Toya. And there'll be a link in the description box of this episode. Also as well, I'm on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. It's my go-to, and I don't know why. I just really like it. My Instagram handle is Toya_Washington. And of course, the Toy Talks podcast Instagram is Toya_Talks. If you'd like to follow me on Snapchat, my handle is Toya Washington, and that's all one word. If you have a workplace dilemma, email hello@toytalks.com, and I will respond, and you know, recognizing that, you know, I know how hard it is to write in and share a dilemma, but your anonymity will always be protected, and we will discuss it here on the Toy Talks podcast and hopefully work through it. All I would ask is keep it straight to the point, keep it brief as possible, but straight to the point, and what outcome you are seeking, because that will enable me to know how to advise you. If you haven't already, yeah, darling on a bicycle. If you haven't already gone onto the toytalks.com website, where all the masterclasses, a catalogue of masterclasses, are held under the Toy Talks Academy. We have some really exciting masterclasses coming up, one of which I previously mentioned, called the Freelance Contractor and Interim Consultancy Masterclass. And in that masterclass, I will tell you all the things and the blueprint that I have used to become a contractor, how to set up a limited company. I go into talking about inside IR35, outside IR35, how to tailor your CV so it's more attractive to the interim market as well. I'll be talking about all different aspects of contracting that I think you would need to know, especially if you're already in it or if you're looking to go into contracting, and that's irrespective of the field you're in. I have a few friends who work in the medical profession, and a couple of are nurses, and they are bank staff, and they never thought that they could do that in a short space of time of qualifying. And you know, your girl had to like let them know, honey, you can contract, and you don't necessarily have to kind of be working somewhere for 5 years to be able to do it. Gone are those days. So if you are interested, go onto the toytalks.com website, and there are the masterclasses held there under the Toy Talks Academy, and I'll be updating some masterclasses. I'm going to add some quizzes to the already I'm going to be adding some quizzes to the masterclasses that are there already, and those quizzes are just going to encourage you to maybe think about what you've learned on those masterclasses, but also especially when it comes to like CVs and stuff, I want people to think about how to better improve your CV. There are templates for some of my masterclasses as well. So the CV masterclass, the redundancy masterclass have templates. I think the negotiation masterclass have templates as well, and all this is included in the price of those masterclasses. So go ahead and get those masterclasses. What else was I going to say? Toya, what else have you got to say? I think that's all the announcements. Also as well, I am not doing any public speaking events for the rest of 2023. And that's just because my diary is packed. I'm very busy and there's a lot of things going on. I have one more public speaking event, and then that's it for the rest of the year. I also offer a service whereby if you're going through a redundancy process, an organisation can pay for you to get independent advice on an offer that has been made. And I've done a few of them now where organisations have said to somebody going through redundancy, here's an offer, go and get independent advice about this offer and let us know if you want to accept it or not. And then I give a recommendation based on kind of the offer. I let you know what the offer is in plain layman terms and the implications, and obviously you get to make a decision whether to proceed with the redundancy and get a payout or not, or negotiate for better terms. I'll also provide you with information there, and I've done a couple of them now as like independent work and stuff, and I've really enjoyed it and I've learned so much. So I will be updating the redundancy masterclass as a result as well. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to thank each and every one of you for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for continuing to support the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.